Hey guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica. I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at JustinoTweets and at SheKnowsArsenal. Welcome to another episode. We're going to be going over everything and unpacking everything from Arsenal's win against Aston Villa at the weekend, as well as talking a little bit of transfer news because there has been some reports around Tierney and interest from Newcastle in regards to him. And then there's also been some talk about right back. So we will talk about all those things today. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel. I know the internet was a little bit glitchy right there at the beginning, but you know how it is around here. But I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say because it's such a range of emotions from the game at the weekend because it went from like hope to distress to elation, all the emotions that you could have felt from that game, you felt it. And it felt like a turning of the form for Arsenal from my perspective. It felt like in the first half there was still a little bit of gloominess and feeling sorry for ourselves. We went into halftime, got our shit together, and decided that we wanted to win the Premier League. That's what it really felt like. And there was a couple of performances from some players that were just basically just pulling us over the line. And I think you can't really ignore it. The performance from Jorginho. I mean, I think when you look at the full 90 minutes, he was good the whole time. You know, he kept his cool. He was playing those balls in between the lines, the little slip balls into the left half space or the right half space for Saka and Ben White and those guys. Like, he was excellent. He was excellent. Saka was getting kicked from pillar to post the entire match and held his own. And we saw a little bit of an angry streak there from Saka. His goal was excellent. It was beautiful, but his all-around performance was amazing. And I thought that specifically the block from Gabriel on Bailey and then the shot from Bailey that Ramsdale saved were all pivotal moments in that match that helped us get it over the line. And Arsenal just needed a win. I didn't know when that win was going to come. Quite frankly, I didn't know if it was going to come against Aston Villa because I just felt like we needed an easy home match. We needed a game against Bournemouth or something like that at home in the sunshine, not at 12 o'clock on Saturday, to just kind of reset everything. But that game doesn't come until March 4th. And my fear was that we would just kind of let things slide away until then because the games that we have are not easy for a team that's not in form. And we struggled in the first half. I thought we were predictable again. We were slow on the ball. We were making mistakes that we don't usually make. The defending for the first goal from Ollie Watkins was poor from Saliba. The Matty Cash just taking the ball off of the toe of Zinchenkos and them just being able to run down the pitch and score that goal. The second goal, you could say it was good play from them, but they beat our press so easily, and nobody beats our press that easily. So yeah, I mean, you could just see that the team just needed a little bit of something, and maybe this is what it took to wake them out of that bad period. But there's nothing but positives from my perspective in terms of the turnaround. It's not easy to go away from home when you're out of form to a team that's dying to beat you, because there's all the narratives. There's the Unai Emery narrative. There's, the Coutinho narrative. There's the Douglas Luiz narrative. There's the Martinez narrative. There's all these narratives around. And they probably felt like there was never if they ever ran into Arsenal, this was probably the best possible time for them to run into us. And you could see that they were up for it. And it's difficult to go to those types of sides when you're not in form and come from behind. Arsenal had to come from behind twice to win that game and to go all the way into stoppage time and not give up. We created so many chances in the second half, and that's the first time that we've looked like us in a long time. It feels like a long time. It's been a couple of weeks, but a couple of weeks in football feels like a long time. And that's the first time since Manchester United, where I felt like I was looking at Arsenal, the same Arsenal that, we've known since August, popping the ball around, finding Odegaard in the pocket. The weight of passes got better. We were creating chances. We were picking them apart. We were quicker on the ball, and we defended a lot better. And that's why we deserve the win. And so, yeah, I'm so excited about what I saw, because that showed the stuff of champions. Like, you're not just always going to get to play the sunny game, against teams that you're better than all the time, like, and just sweep them aside. You're going to have to come, you know, from behind sometimes and through some adversity. And they did that. And it's a big, big win for the team. Hold on. Hold on, y'all. It sounds like somebody's in my house. Hold on. When you're by yourself sometimes and you're just, I don't know if you guys ever have this, but like you start to hear things and you're like, something wrong with us? Like, is somebody in here? What's going on? I had to go look. Let's see what you guys are saying here. Matthew says Arsenal's XG was 3.27 and Villa's was only 0.4. Yeah, like in the second half, we definitely racked up the chances. And if you look back to like Odegaard's chance was a big chance missed. And so I think Nketiah's was as well. So we did create a lot of chances. And I want to know what that was. That was probably a big chance as well. So yeah, our XG was pretty good, especially in the second half. Dio says, Jess, I want to understand how you thought inconsistent City would just go on to win the league after beating us. That was an immature take, in my opinion. Well, I don't know if it's immature to think that the team that has won 4 out of the last 5 Premier League seasons would not have the form to carry them through. This is the thing. It's like people come and then they act like you have no reason to feel that way. For me, the past and history dictates a lot of what my predictions are. So naturally, I would predict that Manchester City, although they're not amazing at the moment, would be able to beat Nottingham Forest and kind of solidify their form and stay ahead of us, especially if we didn't win the game against Aston Villa. So sorry that I predicted a team that has been the best team in England for the last, 7-8 seasons, and probably one of the best teams in Europe, would be able to beat Nottingham Forest. My bad. Let's see what you guys are saying. Steve says, we are back. Hold on, you guys. I can't do this. I don't have my glasses on, and I'm just like, sometimes I don't like putting them on because you guys are like, oh my God, I can see the glare. You guys are just going to have to see the glare because I can't see. Oh, you guys, I could not see. I couldn't see. Let's see. Jasper says, after that win, I think the team earned our belief. It was fair not to believe after the City loss. Thank you, Jasper. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Here's the thing. There's some people, first of all, we're all different as Arsenal fans. And I think the best thing that we could do as Arsenal fans is accept that other people have different opinions. This is a sidebar because I feel like if we could just understand this point, we could all just enjoy the ride that we're on and not get so up in a fuss because that Arsenal fan or that Arsenal fan doesn't think the same way I do. I'm a person that I kind of have to see things before I believe it. This for me is a new Arsenal team. Since we brought in Ramsdale and White and Saka and Martinelli have become such important parts in the team. And, Shaka and Partey have maintained those positions. We bought Odegaard. For me, this is a new team, a new side with a new manager. And so I feel like until you see something, sometimes it's hard for you to believe it. And people will say that we've come from behind before. Last season, our entire season was dictated by the fact that we could not come from behind and win a game. This season, we've been able to do better at that, but it was never under when we were under massive pressure, when we had just lost a big match to Manchester City. You know what I mean? And so it's like, I need to see it first, period. That's how I am. And that might seem like you don't believe in the team. I just haven't seen it yet. This team is young. You guys, every single time we lose a game or, we criticize the team or anything, the first thing people say is the team is young and inexperienced. It's fine. So if they're young and inexperienced, why would I just believe with everything in my being that we're just going to run away with the title ahead of Manchester City, the team they've been the best in the league for the last 7-8 years? Why would I just believe that just because people want to hear only positive things? I support the team. I want them to do well. I never want a prediction of mine that is not necessarily positive to be right, just so I can be right. But I'm also not just going to say things just for effect. Some people are just glass half full all the time. I believe they can do it, blah, blah, blah. I'm a little bit more like, okay, I need to see it. And teams that have been historically better than us over the last 5, 6, 7 seasons, I'm going to predict that they're going to be better than us until I see that we're better than them. So it's really strange to me how people just cannot get over the fact that there's millions of Arsenal fans and we're not going to all sing from the same hymn sheet. As long as you want the team to win, you are backing the team, and that's just it. And like, we could just get over it from here. Sometimes it's just like, but you didn't believe that we were just going to run away with the title? No, I didn't. Hello. And I still am not sure that we are. Dynamic says exactly, we can beat City at the Etihad. Ash says one thing's for sure, City aren't going on a big win streak. We'll both drop points from now on. I think it's one game at a time. I think one thing that this little run has shown me is not that you're never as bad or as good as you think. I think that's what it is. It's sometimes we get too carried away and we think we're never going to lose a game. And then when we lose a game, it's like, wow. And then other times, we think the losing run is never going to end. And so from my perspective, it's one game at a time, because as we've seen, things can shift so quickly. When Manchester City beat us, the narrative shift was massive. Manchester United winning a game and gaining a couple of points on Manchester City put them into the title race narrative-wise. Now that we've won a game, the narrative is shifted around again. So I think it's taking a game at a time. It's because right now it's a 3-horse race and anything can happen. Let's see. John says the game was a roller coaster of emotions. So let's talk about the game a little bit more. So the first half was a half to forget. It really was very similar to the games that we have seen over the last couple of, weeks. A half to forget. It was hard to watch. We never really give up goals early on in a half. That was the first game that we've given up a goal so early on in a half. They looked like they could score anytime they came down the pitch. And they only had really 2 chances in the first half, and they put them both in the back of the net. And we didn't match their energy. They were winning every first ball, second ball. They were pressing us and making us make mistakes, and we weren't necessarily doing the same. And it did look like we were going to let that slip away. Now, when Saka scored his goal, I did think, okay, well, maybe we'll kind of get into the half and it'll be okay. But we just don't seem to be able to hold ourselves. Like right now, it feels like when we score a goal, we kind of are desperate to concede right after that. And, Saka scored the penalty at home against Manchester City. And then we just kind of gave that away as well. Like, defensively, we haven't been great over the last couple of weeks. It's something that stands out to me a lot, because sometimes you fall out of form in terms of your goals, but your defense has to stand strong and kind of be the forever constant. And we've given up like 10 goals in like the last 4 games or something like that. It's unacceptable for a team of our level. And there's like soft goals. Like for me, it's like goals that the teams aren't even having to really work for. Especially like the first goal that Aston Villa scored, I thought was just like us just pretty much giving it away. And so that's definitely something that needs to be ironed out, because that cannot be a theme from now until the end of the season. We won't win the league with that sort of defensive, if that's how our defense is going to be. But the second half, we just looked completely different. And it was the first time in the for a while that we were finding Odegaard in the right spots. He was dictating play. We just seemed like we were clicking a lot more. And Jorginho was a big part of that, because he was finding Odegaard so much. And he was one of the only players that I saw that was being a little bit more front-footed in what he was doing defensively. He wasn't letting them get the ball and then reacting to them. There were times where the ball was in the air, and I think because he also knows that he doesn't have necessarily like the physicality or the athleticism, he doesn't even let the ball drop. He tries to intercept it first. He tries to be first to the ball so that he can dictate and they can react to him, versus the other way around. And I think as the game wore on, like, our players started to win first balls again, win second balls again, and be the team that was dictating instead of let Aston Villa dictate to us. And Jorginho just had such a good performance from minute 1 to all the way to the end. When the most of the team was off, he was on. And so kudos to him, because I know that there was a lot of distrust and a lot of confusion around the Jorginho signing. Is this going to work out for us? Chelsea players have never worked out in the past. But one thing that I did say, amongst being kind of disappointed that we didn't get our number 1 targets, was that at least Jorginho isn't coming into a broken team. So he doesn't feel like he can just come in and just chill and not work hard. And he's come into a motivated side, and it looks like he's slotting into the role that we need him to, which is leader. Because losing Thomas Partey, you are losing somewhat of your leadership. Thomas Partey doesn't yell or do anything like that, but he leads by the way that he plays, and he's a very big personality out there on the pitch for us. And Jorginho, even though he doesn't have the athleticism, and I think in the first half, him and Shaka did struggle a little bit, because Aston Villa did have that athleticism and physicality in midfield. They had the runners and the legs. They did struggle a little bit, but Jorginho pushed right up in the second half and was right on top of them, and was kind of competing for those first and second balls and making sure the ball didn't drop, so that, because once the ball drops, it's just it's difficult for him, because he can't move as well as other players, because he just doesn't have that in his game. But you could just tell, he's a very intelligent player, knows what to do. Even that slide tackle that he made where it hit his arm, I think he did that shit on purpose. I think he did that shit on purpose. I thought he did really, really well, and I'm excited about, what he can introduce into this team, because we haven't had that in a while. If El Neni or Sambi was out there, I don't really think we win that game. And what a shot. What a shot. I mean, people say it's lucky because it came off of Martinez, but it was a good shot, Let's see. Lynn says, I also feel that he was more supportive than Partey is to the young players. I just think he's more of a leader. I think Thomas Partey is not really a leader. He's one of our best players, but he's not a leader. There's a difference in the two. Even though I do think he leads by the way that he plays. And so, Jorginho is doing the role that we needed him to do. Do you know what I mean? Mo ran away. Shaka needs an upgrade. In the summer, we should play Zinni in the middle, rest Shaka and KT at left back. That left-hand side has been under attack, and it's worrying. It still is not quite working, right? I think even with Trossard, you saw that he was very isolated, and he didn't really get a good enough chance, in my opinion, to show what he can do. And I think just in general, whether it's Martinelli or Trossard, we're seeing that they're very isolated in those positions, and so they're not affecting the game. But yeah, Shaka is definitely a position, that left center mid. It's a position that it looks like it needs to be upgraded upon. If, you want to play with this inverted left back, that's fine. But because, Zinchenko pretty much operates in the spot that Shaka wants to be in, he seems a little bit redundant out there, and we're not really utilizing, I think, that spot to the best of its ability. And so that's no shade on Shaka or anything like that, but it's definitely something to upgrade upon. Would I say we need to play Zinchenko in the middle now and move things around now? I'm not quite sure about that. Let's see. Big T says favorite song at the moment. Asking me. To be honest, I don't even know, you guys. I've gotten to the point in my life where I don't really get caught up in like new music anymore. Like I'm pretty much like I'm an old person now. I would be considered like an older person, you know? So the music that I like is now probably things that younger people are like, that is so old. So my favorite song at the moment, like I don't even really have one, but like from a musical standpoint, like I'm a big R&B hip hop fan, but I also like alternative rock as well. I really like, Jay-Z, Kanye, uh, I don't know, like Justin Timberlake, Alicia Keys, like those are the people that I listen to all the time. So yeah, I don't have a favorite song right now. I don't really listen to many new things. So yeah, but sorry I can answer your question, but I'm going to a festival in May called Lovers and Friends. It's like Usher puts it on. And so it's gonna be like Usher, Missy Elliott, Busta Rhymes, who else is gonna be there? Mariah Carey. So if that should give you an indication of like what kind of person I am and what I like and how old I am. So yeah, but Jasper says no. Okay, let me see what you guys are saying. DMC says J20 had largely been overlooked by our fan base because of his massive drop off by Chelsea. He brings mega experience to the current team. I think it's fair though. Like here's the thing is I think sometimes you have to understand that like some Arsenal fans are just like are not going to always be able to like look into the stats and like really deep think into why a player is good for us or not. It's very similar to Ramsdale. It's like people the first thing that they said is, well, he's gotten relegated a couple of times, so why would I want him in my team? And of course that's not probably the way that you want to analyze a new player coming into your side, but I think for some Arsenal fans it's just as simple as we've had a bunch of Chelsea, older Chelsea players in our team and it's never really worked out. So I don't want another one. And now they've seen him play in the side. And so they'll come around. And sometimes it's just that simple. You just have to let people see like the player play and then they'll come around. But yeah, like I can understand why he was overlooked and maybe some people were too harsh. I know my initial reaction to it was like, what the F? I don't want him in our team. But like he's doing a good job and that's pretty much all I can ask for. I just think we needed somebody that could come in for Thomas Partey that wouldn't just completely let us down and not let us down, but somebody that could keep the level to a title winning team level. And we just haven't had that before. So he's done a good job. So yeah. But yeah, I think yeah, Jorginho, he's never going to be, I think, a game changer for us, but he is keeping our level at a certain point. Amir says, always thought Jorginho was a shrewd signing. Good players in the right system will only elevate them even more. Love fans singing his name for first in 5 years he's experienced proper fan support. Yeah, he looks right at home. He looks happy to be here, and that's what you want to see. You don't want to see the sulking. I'm sorry, I thought Willian sulked a lot at Arsenal when he left Chelsea, and that was a big reason why he just didn't buy into it. Is he was mourning the loss of not being at Chelsea, and because you see now that he's at Fulham, he is a quality player. He was never crap. He just never really bought into Arsenal, but it seems like Jorginho is kind of gotten right in there with the rest of the team, and that's what you want to see. Let's see. Daniel says, I bet you just in so much as I'm a pessimist of Jorginho singing, I don't think Caicedo would have gotten that instinct to strike the ball the same way J20 struck it in. Just yeah, I mean, we could say that Caicedo might not have scored that goal, or we just don't really know what Caicedo would have been like in this team. Maybe you don't lose to Everton with Caicedo in your team because you have the legs to compete with the Everton midfield. I'm forgetting their names now. Decore, Adrisagay, and Onana. So, I mean, we could do that in so many different instances, right? Where it's like, if we had this player in this team, this probably would have happened, but we just don't really know, right? But I do think that J20 is kind of showing us that he can continue the level, and he has different characteristics than Thomas Partey does. I think it's almost reductive to just say like he's doing the Thomas Partey job. Like, he's not. He's doing things that are different. Those little slip balls that he's playing in the right half space, and the balls in between the lines, is something that Thomas Partey is not doing as much in our team. Thomas does a little bit more of like the bigger switches from left to right. He doesn't really do the balls in between the lines as much as he used to, but literally Jorginho is a deep line playmaker, and we're seeing a lot of that from him. And it's really useful when you need to push for a goal, and you're right up at the halfway line, and you need to push. He was so good for that, and he was finding Odegaard, which is the connection that has got to remain strong. We need a strong connection from deep in midfield to Odegaard, because that's how we score goals. Ash says Partey loves progressing the ball to our wingers. Jorginho cuts through the middle. That's a really good way of putting it. I just didn't say it as well as you said it, but yeah, Partey does those long balls into like Saka and wide, and stuff like that. And Jorginho was cutting through the middle, which was great. Let's see. Jovi says, I think we will concede less when our CB get used to J20. Yeah, maybe. I think that's a part of it. Is that, that I've never seen that much space in our midfield. The last time I saw that much space in our midfield and we got cut through the way that we did against Aston Villa was against Manchester United away from home. And so losing Thomas Partey does, I think, put the defense in a difficult situation, and there's just not that same connectivity, and there's a little bit of confusion, and those things will come. And so we just have to be a little bit more patient. I think they'll start to get used to it, but by the time they get used to it, Thomas Partey may be back. And I have seen, this from Sin, like people are saying that they want to see Jorginho and Partey in a pivot. I don't know. I don't know how that works out. I'd love to see it. I just don't know if I see Arteta doing that much tinkering. Again, Arteta's very consistent with the way that he does things. He doesn't tinker as much as he used to. And so I'm not sure that I see that, but maybe it's an option to let Shaka rest. But if Shaka needs a rest, the player that I want to see come in is Fabio Vieira. I've been telling you guys for weeks that Fabio Vieira is a quality player, but we need to be patient. We need to give him time. And it's so funny how just a couple of days switcheroo, this is how narratives change so quickly. There was a period of time where, people were on Fabio Vieira saying he was a waste of a player, a waste of space. We shouldn't have never bought him. Then, he's played in the last couple of games, little cameos here and there. And he actually played well when he came on against Aston Villa. And now people want to see him get more playing time. I do this as well, but I do think we have to remember that players that are not getting much playing time probably don't have the confidence to just come in and change a game with 10-minute cameos when we're under duress and we're not playing well. And for me, what's always stuck out from Fabio Vieira is when he played with the starting 11, and he's played from the beginning. He's played well. And he definitely is the type of player that's like, I'm going to leave here with something. He is a final third end product type of player. And that's different than Granit Xhaka. And that's kind of what we need in that position. With the inverted left back, it's really hard to see where Xhaka's role is not redundant. And we need somebody that's going to get into the final third and make shit happen. I don't think Xhaka is up there for the pass, into Martinelli for the fourth goal. I don't think that that's his bag. And also Fabio Vieira can underlap and overlap the left winger. That's the player that I would like to see come in instead of moving Zinchenkos out of left back and putting Kieran Tierney in. I'd prefer to just see us play the player that we bought to play in that position and just give him a chance. I know we're in a stressful situation because we're fighting for the title, but when he plays with the starting 11 and he gets more than 10 minutes, he does pretty good. He just needs to eat some chicken and rice, that's pretty much all it is. Gio says, in my opinion, Vieira is going to dictate if we win Europa. How is that? How is that? Let me know why you think that. Do you think he's going to play a significant role? Yeah, let me know why you think that. I think he is an important player. I didn't know if he was going to have an important role this season, but I do think he's a player that's going to prove, players that have end product are always going to become super important to your team because goals are the most important thing in football and they're the hardest things to do, and so anybody that could get you more goals is going to be important to your team. Sin says Zinchenko is like Maverick Donny. How important was it for him to get, like, how crazy is it that he got his first Premier League goal and his very first game, or very first goal for Arsenal was the goal that he scored against Aston Villa? The one thing I'll say about Zinchenko is I thought that he was an enemy of progress in the first half. He was frustrating me to no end. But the thing about Zinchenko is mentality. He's the type of player that never really gives up. He gives his whole heart. And even, somebody had written this on Twitter that after the first goal that he was kind of culpable for giving away. If the giveaway that he had led to that goal, he ran over and took the ball out of the net. After the second goal went in, he ran over and took the ball out of the net. And then when he equalized for 2-2, he just ran back and was like, because we're going to get that next goal. And what I like to see is players that are not playing well, I don't like to see them crumble. I like to see them still maintain a level of confidence and still play for the team and not get so sunk into the, oh my gosh, I'm playing so poorly. You could tell that he knows that he wasn't playing that well, but he was going to continue to do his thing. And I mean, I just think that makes a huge difference in a team, like even when you're not playing well. And so, yeah, that being his first goal, I think is significant. And you don't score that chance. You don't put that ball in the back of the net if you're moping because you're not playing well or you're in your head. He had put that mistake out of his head so quickly so that he could, reset. And it was a great shot. And I'm so happy for him because people have been on him over the last couple of games, which is normal when a player's not playing well. Let's see. O'Malley says, I think Jorginho is the most important Europa League player. Yo-Yo says, I think game state and opposition matters when assessing players, but Vieira needs patience. I don't want him set up to fail. Well, the thing is, like, even if, we'll say like, okay, the game state is why, we got the fourth goal, which is probably true. Like it was probably 3-2. It probably wasn't 4-4-2, if we're honest. But even before that, he was neat and tidy on the ball. And he put in one really good pass into Martinelli over the top. It's a really good ball. And he looked a lot more confident on the ball than he usually does. And I know that's like, okay, well, we're pushing for the goal, but it wasn't like, where you're already up 5-0 and the other team is already done with the game and all that kind of stuff. Aston Villa were still pushing for a goal themselves. So, I mean, even Fabio Vieira, I think off of one of our corners and they were hitting us on the break, ran back and tried to defend as well, in transition. So from my perspective, because I know that the Brentford match and the Wolves match where I think that Fabio Vieira put himself in a really good light, for me, that's not game state because he basically played from the beginning of the Brentford match and he played from like the first 10 minutes of, the Wolves match. So he's more than good enough to do it when he has the people around him and he's not in a situation where it's just like last 10 minutes, we're under duress. We haven't been playing well, give him more minutes. Give him more minutes, man. Give him more minutes. Gio says Vieira performed well in the Champions League for a worse Porto side. Yeah, he did. He's like, he does have some, European experience and stuff like that. So he'll be important just by the fact that like we're gonna need to rest our starters for the Premier League. So I get that. I get that for sure. O'Malley says, I'm glad Zinchenko and Arteta letting the world know we see them all like kicking Saka. I did see that Zinchenko had like called for the Premier League to protect Bukayo Saka, and Arteta also spoke about it. It's just ridiculous. And the thing that frustrates me about the narrative around the kicking of Saka is that people just think Arsenal fans are being dramatic about it, but it's not dramatic. Like, other people see it as well, and it's becoming a talking point because he's just being kicked to bits, and now he's reacting back, and the only way that they can stop him is by kicking him. And they know they're going to get away with it. They never get yellows, they never get red cards, they never get penalties called against them, and it's a dangerous precedent to set. I don't understand why, like, an England national team player does not get protected like the rest of them. I saw Harry Kane get no contact from Antonio yesterday in their game. It was a tackle where Antonio got the ball. Literally, when you watch it, he got the ball. The ball hit Kane. He rolls around on the ground and holds his ankle, and Antonio gets a yellow card. It's a joke. It's not just in our heads. Saka is getting kicked more than other players. I don't see that normal. It's just not normal. And, one day he's going to get a really bad injury, and then people will be like, oh my God, it's ridiculous. And for Saka to have as many yellow cards as he has too, it's just like, it's a joke. But players will continue to do it because they know they're not going to there's no repercussions for it. Tendai says, I think it was offensive to call the team boys when we know full well they did the best they could apart from a few mistakes that cost us goal. We need to respect the team. You can feel that way, but because we beat Aston Villa does not change the way I felt about the way that we performed against Manchester City, and I thought it was poor. I actually respect the team more than I think a lot of other people do because they always go back into their young team, so it's just fine. I actually think they can perform better than that, and I expect them to because I actually respect their talent. So for me, it was a men against boys type of game once again, where we just kind of crumbled and we didn't have the mental capacity to see the game through. And I know that we can. So saying that I don't respect the team, I think is disrespectful to always go back to them being young as a reason why they can't win games or they don't win games. I think they're better than that. So you guys can be upset by that. But again, we're talking about two different games, and you can't come back when we win against Aston Villa and say, oh, well, what you said about for the Manchester City game doesn't count now. It does. It was a poor performance, and I think we could have got something from that game. This team is more than good enough to get a point or beat Manchester City at home if they can just keep their nerve. I actually respect them enough to feel like they're good enough to do it and not always fall back on the fact that they're young. They're better than that. They're better than that. And the reality is I don't think Arteta was sitting there in the dressing room telling them that you're just young kids and, those mistakes are just going to happen. Like, be for real. I respect them. The legend says Vieira needs to get more minutes. He had a decent start when he first signed. Martinelli and Nketiah, Shaka have all been underperforming. It's interesting about, the Nketiah situation as well, because I think he, did okay, but he didn't score a goal again. And I wonder if he just needs a break, but when is he going to get it? I don't know when Jesus is coming back, and I think that's the next time that Nketiah won't play. And so until Gabriel Jesus comes back, I think we're going to see Nketiah in the team, and I think he's just kind of run out of steam a little bit. He's not – one of the things that hurts Nketiah is because it doesn't seem like he really wants to – he early on when he first came into the team, he was doing a lot of the link-up play and coming deep and doing some of the Jesus-y stuff, but then also was scoring the goals. He's kind of stopped doing the link-up play now, and is also not rotating with the front three, and he's a little bit more stagnant and stationary, and he's not putting away his chances. He had that one chance that he really should have put to bed. He didn't have the header. I thought that was okay. Like, headers are low chances anyway, but the one that he had where he was kind of in on goal, he really should have put that away. And so Nketiah is somebody that I think we just have to get behind, because he's not going to be subbed out, or I don't think he's going to be benched at all, but his scoring needs to come back, because without that, he's a hindrance to the team, because we lose some of that link up play and that creativity up top. And so, yeah, but he had an okay game, but it's hard to say that he had an okay game when he doesn't score. I just thought he was like, he put himself around a bit, I don't know. He was just okay. But yeah, he is underperforming a little bit, but at the same time, players go in and out of form, and I'm not just going to throw it out. I think some people are being a little bit, see, I told you he wasn't good enough. And I'm like, I think he's just a little bit off, and him being a little bit off has also coincided with the rest of the team being a little bit off. So let's see how he rebounds if we start playing good again. Let's see. Martin N says, I hope we can be ahead by 2 or 3 goals early next game. I want to see Kiwior in action. If you guys didn't see how Leicester played, it was funny, because in the first 20 minutes when Leicester were playing okay and they were missing all those chances, I saw a lot of Arsenal fans tweeting, oh, next week is going to be really hard. It's going to be really difficult. Leicester look good. And then they turned around and Leicester that game up. For me, Leicester is the type of team where they've always had the attacking talent to do, to hurt you. But they are scary defensively. Like, the way that they're just so easily played through, for me, makes me think that we're going to have a really good game against them. I think they're quite similar to Aston Villa. They have players that can hurt you. They have decent quality, but defensively, they're not that great. So we should be able to, if we play the way that we played in that second half against Leicester, we will beat them. So I would like to be a couple of goals up. I'm not sure if we will be. I don't know when's the first time we're going to see Kiwior, but what makes me so excited about him is that Arteta said that he's going to change the way that we play from the back, something like that. Arteta doesn't come out and say things like that very often, that players are going to like revolutionize our game and all that kind of stuff. He must be pretty special, but he needs to be eased in, and we're in a title race, and the first game for him probably can't be one of these highly pressurized games, but Bournemouth at home is a game that I'm looking at. I'm really keying in on as a game where we should probably be rotating some of our players and getting them some rest. I would love to see maybe Kiwior start. I want to see Fabio Vieira start in that game. And going into Europa League, these players need to feel like important parts of the team, because my biggest fear with Europa League is I still want to have a good run in the cup, even though we're not we're going for the title as well. I feel like we have more than enough to put in a really good run in Europa. So the first time that some of these guys are called upon cannot be like, round of 16 where it's knockouts. And, I think they need to kind of be eased in a little bit, give them a little bit of a taste now. That's why it's good that Fabio Vieira has been playing a little bit, and Nketiah has been playing, because Jesus should be back soon. But yeah, maybe Kiwior, maybe give him a little bit of a taste. The first time we see him cannot be in a knockout. Cannot be, So would love to see him play. But I think the difference between Kiwior and Gabriel might just be what he can do on the ball. I think that's what the difference between the two of them is, might be, so we'll see what happens with that. Yo-Yo says, Trossard is the only other guy who can play centrally in the way that Jesus plays it. Yeah, that's true. I do think that when you're looking for how can we get as like for like, to get that same type of creativity through the middle, it probably is Trossard. But I also think Trossard is in a season with Arsenal where Arteta doesn't fully trust him yet. I think in order for us to see that happen, he'd have to be desperate. But he would give us kind of some of that. He would give us some of that as well. Dynamic says Kiwior is quality last piece to the puzzle. Oh, he can't be the last piece to the puzzle because we know we need a left center mid. But I hear what you're saying. Let's see. Gio says Kivior is athletic more than you think, and he's calmer on the ball. I from what I've seen from just the comps that I've looked at, which is not much, so I know it's not like, you know, oh, you know everything because you watched him on YouTube. But the difference is the quality on the ball. Early on, it actually was when Arteta, I think, was it his second season? It was behind closed doors, I think. I forget. But we played against Liverpool. And it was the game, I think they beat us 3-1. And typical Liverpool Arsenal game back then where they were just we kind of held on for a little bit and then we crumbled. But Virgil van Dijk was hitting these long 40-yard passes, like quarterback style, into Salah, you know, from the back. And Arteta was talking about it after the game and was talking about how when you can do that, you can just kind of do anything, you know, and he was like in awe of what Virgil van Dijk could do on the ball. And, you know, that was a feature of the way that they played a lot back then. And that's always stuck with me because I've always felt like Arteta has wanted that. He's wanted a player that from the back can hit that big switch, 40-yard switch from, you know, wherever the halfway line right onto Saka's toe. We were kind of doing that a little bit with Ramsdale, but we've tapered off from it. Gabriel doesn't have that pass, not consistently. That diagonal, he doesn't have it. Sometimes he has the little clip ball in behind and he can pass between the lines to our midfielders and stuff like that in the left-hand space. But that is kind of like a skill that we need to have in the team. And Kivior has that. If you watch his comps, that's all he does, like that big switch. So I do think that that's going to be the difference between the two of them. Gabriel has competition. Yo-Yo says, I'm assuming Kiwi will be more comfortable playing in the widest channel than Gabriel will be. And will become an overlapping CB. Yeah, it's exciting days. I can't wait to see what he's like in our games and stuff like that. But in terms of just like the players that played against Villa and, you know, the mettle that they showed and the mentality that they showed is something that I don't even think that I believe that they had at halftime. I wasn't 100% sure that they could do it. And they proved me wrong. And I'm so happy that they did, because now when we go into games like that, I feel like I will have more confidence that we could come from behind and go through difficult periods and come out the other side, you know, because last season when we needed to win the games and, you know, it wasn't until the pressure was off where we started to win games again. And this time we didn't let it go that far, stop the rot a lot quicker. Which is great. And it helps as well that Manchester City dropped those points. And so, yeah, I'm really proud of the team. And, you know, I just don't even know, like, that was probably the best game of the season, just from like vibe standpoint. You know, you could just see it all over their faces. They were just ecstatic, and you see that they needed that. Yo-Yo, you're right. David Luiz had that in his locker. It's something that our center backs don't have right now, but I know that Arteta wants it. There's 200 of you guys in here, which is great. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel. But yeah, if you guys want to drop some, you know, questions, if you guys want to, this is just kind of like, you know, whatever. We're just kind of wrapping up everything from the Villa game. So any questions you guys want to drop in now would be great. We're also going to talk about Tierney and right back as well. So if you guys have questions about that, go ahead and drop your questions in as well for that, because that's what we're going to start talking about right now too. Sorry, I have like, when I talk to you guys, my throat just gets like so dry. I don't know why. Let's see what you guys are saying. Martin N says the United game was also great. It was. The United game for me was like obviously because I hate them so much, that it was just like great to see like all of them crestfallen when they were like a draw was fine, because I was in the studio with the terrace, and they had started with their a draw is fine, you know, it shows we had progress, we're fine, went toe to toe with the best, and that Eddie dagger at the end was just like, yes, you know, it was great. So yeah, I like that one too. I just think in the moment that we were in, the Aston Villa game gave me all the feels, you know. Gracious Greek says no selling KT, great teams have depth. So let's talk about this. Obviously this rumor has been going around for a while now, but it seems like ever since Eddie Howe has been the manager at Newcastle, they've been linked with Kieran Tierney, or they've been interested in Kieran Tierney. And here's the tea, you guys. I think he's going to go. I think he's going to go. And the reason why I think this is not because of anything that he's doing. You know, there's people that are reading in between the lines of him not celebrating with the team and all that. It's not that. The reason why I think Kieran Tierney will leave is because Kieran Tierney is too good to be sitting on our bench. We don't play to his strengths. That's one thing as well. Like as a player, if I'm at a club that doesn't necessarily play to my strengths, so even when I am playing, I'm kind of uncomfortable, or I know I don't really have a chance. Because as much as people are saying like, well, we need him for versatility, Arteta is wedded to these inverted left back and right back. He is wedded to it. This is what we are doing now. And so even when Tierney does play, he plays inverted. And so if that's not his vibe, but Newcastle, the type of team that has big forwards and does a lot of ball progression and has overlapping fullbacks and does that thing, wants you, that would be a really good move for him. And he's too good to be sitting on our bench. He is a Champions League level left back. And when he's fit, he's as good as anybody else. And so, like, if I was Kieran Tierney's friend, I would be telling him to keep his options open, you know? And Newcastle, they could also afford him and probably could afford his wages. I'd tell him keep his options open because he's too good to just be in his prime, not playing. Kieran Tierney's too good. As an Arsenal fan, and as somebody who loves Kieran Tierney, it would break my heart if he left. He was the first piece of this group, first piece of this puzzle. One of the last left, like, of the team before. And for a while was like our best player. If he did not play, we were effed. He was the original Thomas Partey, you know? He doesn't play, we're effed. And he was creating all of our chances. But the team is evolving beyond him, and it just kind of has been for a while. It's been that way for a while, basically since Zinchenkos been here. And so, you know, the original issue was, you know, if he can't stay fit, you know, then he needs to go. But now the issue is more, is there any time where we would need Kieran Tierney? You know, is there, you know, the time where Arteta will try an overlapping left back? There just isn't. Arteta is going to play these inverted left backs, and the time to sell a player is kind of when it's not obvious. That was out of all the things that Elliot from the Arsenal Vision podcast has ever said, that is one of the things that's always stuck to me. And I've always kind of been like, that is probably the truest thing. Once it's obvious you need to sell a player, it's too late. And I don't think it's that obvious to sell Kieran Tierney right now. Everybody is saying, like, keep him. We need him. But I even think Tomiyasu was in front of him earlier on in the season in terms of the pecking order. You know, and I think that says a lot. Is if a right back is ahead of you in the pecking order of left backs, then that's also telling you where you stand. And you could get a good amount of money for Kieran Tierney. You really could, you know. The 30 million that's being banded around, I wouldn't even look at that, because when the likes of Cucurella are going for almost 60 million, I would be telling anybody, including Newcastle, I wouldn't start talking to them below 45 million. But I do think that, I'm starting to feel like that is inevitable. The links won't go away. The rumors aren't going away. It's not just paper talk. It's even James Bench has said something about it, that it's expected that he may be looking for a move in the summer. And so it just is what it is. It would break my heart. Like, Kieran Tierney is such a good player, such a good character. Like, just the first player of this new era of Arsenal. But, I don't think there's a time where we're going to see Arteta using him for what he's best at, which is overlapping and bombing forward. So it's a tough one. Martin N says, if KT is gone, do we need a replacement, or Nuno is good enough? Well, Nuno just scored his 6th goal, and he broke a record for being the most goals from a defender in that league in a long time or something. So there's that. Do I think do we need a replacement? I don't know, y'all. I mean, excuse me. When I think about it, I think, okay, so Tomiyasu can cover both sides. So is that enough? If we're going to play inverted, maybe. Maybe. But we're looking at right backs. So maybe Arteta feels like we have enough left back cover with Tomiyasu being able to play on the left as well. So I wouldn't say that I'd be like, we have to get a replacement for him, not in the short term, because I know Tomiyasu can play that role and he's pretty decent at it. But is Nuno good enough? I just watch Nuno and I just think he'd be a perfect player to cash in on, because I don't think he suits the style either. He needs a lot of space. He needs a lot of green grass to do his thing. And although I think he's improving and he has a certain threat that maybe would be useful for Arsenal, I find him to be quite similar to Kieran Tierney in a way where I'd be like, do I actually think Arteta would utilize that difference in player? I don't. And so the spaces are getting smaller for us anyway. We basically play on the halfway line, and then when teams think they're smart, they sit back even further. When we play on the edge of their box, when are we going to use Nuno? So I would say cashing in on Nuno seems like the right thing. And would we need a replacement? I think Tomiyasu could be the backup left back, especially if we get another right back. And then you could sell Kieran Tierney, but we need to make a profit on Kieran Tierney, by the way. We got him for 25 million. We've upped his profile. He's a Champions League level left back. He's has a Tesco bag as well. We need to get more than 30 million. Gio says KT will play with the inverted right back doing the Ben role. I don't know, y'all. I mean, he doesn't play now. Let's see. Gio says 50 million if he is sold. Ricky says sell Nuno, not good enough for Arsenal. Tierney stays. Dynamic says, Jess, I know the Man City loss was very disappointing and almost embarrassing, but let's this be a lesson to stick with the team through the good and the bad. We can't just support them when they are winning. I think we all have a different opinion on what support is. As long as I want them to win and on game days I'm behind them, I'm supporting them, I don't have to always predict wins to be supportive. Hope for a win, but don't always predict them. But to each his own. Amir says, I was someone who definitely didn't mind KT being a rotation option if it meant that we have him fit for a full season. But once the lack of sub appearances now pains me. Hope Europa League changes his mind. Yeah, maybe. And I mean, here, I just feel like Arteta's very consistent with the way that he likes to do things and the way he likes his teams to play. And we've seen that he is very unwavering in it. We have Eddie Nketiah and Gabriel Jesus, and they're not necessarily, they're not 100% the same, but they're not too dissimilar either. We're a very like for like type of situation. It's like, I don't think we bring people in for diversity. That's not really what I'm seeing in our team. So I'm not sure that Arteta necessarily wants an overlapping fullback. I would imagine that he'd want somebody more similar to Zinchenko. So if Zinchenko's out, we can continue to do what we're doing. Like it's so hard to see where KT is going to get these minutes. And you want to see Kieran Tierney bombing forward and doing what he does best, not inverting. It looks weird. It looks clunky. He can do it, but it's not his strong suit. Gio says he, played in the back three so he can play with this team. The Inevitable says, which team do you think KT ends up in? I think he'll go to Newcastle. I think people are saying it's near Scotland. I don't know. I'm not looking at a map, but it's colder up there. He might like it. I don't know. I feel like it's a good fit. As much as that's the thing. It's like, as much as I love Kieran Tierney, I'm also looking at it like that's a good move for him. They may not make Champions League, but they will in the future. Him and Kieran Trippier as your left and right back, that's not bad. Both have vast experience. Feels like a match. Feels like a match. Ivy says, we need our fullbacks to play with or without the inverted role, in my opinion. We need versatility. I think the type of versatility that Arteta likes is versatility in players being able to play different positions. But I think in general, the way that we play is the way that we play is the way that we play. So, like, do I think that we're going to turn around and buy a big number 9 striker so that we can have versatility in our team? No, I don't. I think we'll buy another small forward that's creative, that can have that fluidity throughout the front line, and we'll buy another Saka, Jesus, Martinelli type, Trossard type. I'm not seeing an emphasis on versatility where we have 2 players that can play a position that are completely different. I see players that can play multiple positions, and that's the versatility that I see within our team, but not like, overlapping fullback, inverted fullback, overlapping fullback, inverted fullback, false 9, big number 9 striker. I don't see that within our team, and I'm not sure that that's what we're building. But I know that that would make people feel really comfortable because then you have tactical flexibility. But what have we spoke about over the last couple of weeks is that Arteta, we're learning more about him as the seasons go on. And what I'm learning about Mikel Arteta is that I don't think tactical flexibility is going to be his thing. I think he's like, I want to build plan A to the point where you can't beat my plan A. So we're going to plan A and make it perfect instead of having plan B, plan C. And that's why I don't think that Kieran Tierney will stay. Boy says KT probably ends up at Chelsea or Liverpool if we sell him. Hopefully he goes to Germany, though. Can't see him going to, Chelsea. They have 2 left backs and they spent so much on them in Chilwell and Cucurella. Liverpool, they have Andy Robertson, and quite similarly to, Arteta, Klopp is kind of similar. He has the starting 11 and he doesn't really rotate. So Kieran Tierney would be going into the exact same situation at Liverpool that he's at now at Arsenal. It's a little bit different because obviously him and Robertson play a little bit more similarly, but he would be the number 2 choice in that group as well. So, because you see Tsimikas doesn't really play ever, so I don't think he'll end up at either one of those clubs, but Newcastle, there's an opening there. They will move beyond Dan Burn. Dan Burn will become a center back, a backup center back for them, and they will play with, another fullback. And that feels like a match to me. Emmanuel asked, when do you think Smith Rowe will be match fit? Well, he was on the bench for Aston Villa, so I think when we get to Everton at home and Bournemouth at home, I think that's when we'll start to see Emile Smith Rowe, maybe a little bit of Reece Nelson, and hopefully Gabriel Jesus come back into the side. But seeing Smith Rowe just even on the bench for me was something different, somebody that can progress the ball, a little bit of dribbling, a little bit of vibes. We don't need to rush him in because obviously we want him available for Europa League and stuff like that. He's another one that's going to be important for that competition. But it was so nice to see him on the bench. I know you guys do not want to see Kieran Tierney at a rival. I get that. DMC says KT could very well want to go back to Scotland. He could. I would imagine that he'd still want to play his prime at the top level, but I could see him going back to Celtic, like to end his career for sure. I get you guys do not want to sell it. Like, I get it. I get it. I get it. I would like seeing him go would really hurt. Like it really, really would. Dr. Omizia says 80 million for Tierney or swap deal for Guimaraes. Hey, but by the way, now that we're on the topic of Newcastle, can we just talk about Nick Pope for a second? Because it was hilarious, but what's annoying to me is I feel like the narrative around it is that he was unlucky. Are you okay? Like, he was not unlucky. He did a dumb thing. He's not a kid, you know? Like, yes, it sucks that he's going to be out for the Carabao Cup final. I mean, they basically just handed that Carabao Cup to Manchester United, okay? I have no faith in Newcastle. They are going to lose that game now. But what was Nick Pope thinking? Here's my thing also. What was that high line that they were playing against Liverpool the other day? Are you high? What are you thinking? Like, Newcastle came to Arsenal and sat back in a low block and were pretty successful with it. I think they needed something similar against Liverpool. Maybe not a deep, deep block, but they needed some sort of block. Because having those slow men up at that halfway line and having Nick Pope come out, he's not a modern goalkeeper. So I don't know. The first time that he did it and the ball came out and he headed it out, I thought it looked sus. I was like, I don't want to see that again. But then he turned around and did it again. And you could just see that there was like a level of like uncomfortable, like he was uncomfortable with it. And it was just like the funniest thing that I've ever seen. Like, why was he catching the ball out there? He just panicked. You know, it reminded me a little bit of Leno when he did it against Wolves. He panicked. But it's just weird that like the narrative is like he was unlucky. He wasn't unlucky. He was dumb. Come on. George says Nick Pope tried to head the ball, slipped, handled the ball, then panicked and kicked his own player. It was so funny. It was funny. It was. Ify says, I was shocked. They were playing a high line. Liverpool right now are not playing. That's the thing. I was really shocked by that high line. I was like, you are not that team yet. Of course, Newcastle will eventually become a superpower. We fucking know it, but not now. And you have some of the slowest back there, Botman, Shar, and old Bernie, but that the Burn guy. Like it was so funny. And then like just the whole thing, like then Dubravka is cup tied because he played for Manchester United. So now you have to play Loris Karius or whatever his name is. Wow. Like that was so funny. But yeah, I just was like, this high line, hello, like we have a fast front line. And I don't think they played a low block because we have like super quick people. I just think that they were like, well, maybe that's why they did it. But I don't know if you guys have been looking, but Gakpo, Nunez, and Salah might be the fastest front line in the league. They just might be. They just might be. So to have that, they just got a little bit too arrogant for me. Amir says, part of me feels bad for him. He deserves to play the final, and I wanted Newcastle to win the Carabao Cup, but another part can't help but laugh. Master of time wasting karma, a B. So yeah, and also, while we're on goalkeeper, so my thing is I felt like the narrative of the weekend should have been, what is Nick Pope thinking? And Martinez is a clown, okay? Because between the two of them, the clownery was like a circus I've never known, okay? Martinez has been, he's gotten 4 yellow cards in like the last couple of games, like for time wasting, and he wasted like 9 whole minutes in this game. 9 whole minutes in the game against us, something like that. And he got the yellow card, and then the time that he wasted that got added on ended up being the time that we used to beat them. And that ball, when it hit the back of his nugget, I was like, bam! Pop, pop, pop. It was so funny. It was hilarious. And he just, poor Unai, you know, like The thing about Unai is that, like, he never did us dirty. He just wasn't the right manager. And so you can always look at him and be like, you know what, I respect you, right? But I've never seen him that mad in a press conference. But we saw, like, after the World Cup, there was already a little bit of talk around Unai not loving Martinez and his attitude and the way that he celebrated the World Cup and stuff like that. And he was not impressed at all by him going up for that last chance, and leaving the goal open. He's not going to be at Aston Villa that much longer. I mean, if Unai Emery does well with Aston Villa and they back him, I think Martinez will go. He just, I don't know about you guys, but as much as, like, I thought he was a good goalkeeper, I don't like his vibe. I just, it's not, it's not cute to me. I'm like, this whole thing that you do, this whole act is just like a little much for me. And yeah, I'm sure Mbappe looked at that and laughed because it was funny. But it was just, yeah, Unai, I feel sorry for him because he has a rogue goalkeeper and it's just crazy for him. But at the same time, like, it was funny and I was happy. DMC says Unai's Transylvanian dread, laugh out loud. Amira says he has the kind of character Arteta would kick out of the dressing room immediately, in my opinion. Yeah, I think, but Martinez didn't want to stay at Arsenal. This is why we sold Martinez. I'm like, Martinez had a chance to stay, but he wanted to be told that under no, like, he was 100% the number one goalkeeper. And he didn't get that and he booked, he left, so I never really understood why Arsenal fans held on to that for so long, but it looks like, for me, the right decision. As much as Ramsdale can frustrate me, he fits the culture, and those things I think are important. Another point on culture, because at the beginning, I know we had tons of conversations around, does the culture even matter if you're not winning? And no, it doesn't. If you have good culture, but you're not winning, it doesn't matter. But you won't have, like, I don't think you can win with a terrible culture. Yeah, you could do some things, like, obviously you could win a cup here and there or whatever. But I just look at, like, the best teams have good culture. That doesn't mean that they're all nice guys and, they all, do everything right, but they're all kind of singing from the same hymn sheet. It's always the club and the team above everything else. They have the right mentality, things like that. And the one thing that Arteta did, and that Ten Hag also did when he first went into United, is culture first before anything else. Before any players or anything like that, it was, this is the culture and this is the way that we're going to do things. And then the results come after that, and the one thing that Chelsea didn't do is they didn't change the culture. They did players and Hollywood and buy, and money first, and nothing about their culture has changed. And so we do know now, like, you can tell that, like, the teams that have good culture, the results tend to come and it all fuses together to create the perfect storm. That doesn't mean that you can't have players that have off days or are not the best all the time, but you have to all be working in the same direction. Emmy, for me, is an individualist. He's not somebody that's going to work for the good of the team. It was all about him. He felt like he was treated poorly at Arsenal for some reason, and I don't think it ever would have worked out, but everything works out for a reason. I think everything makes sense now where it didn't maybe make sense before. DMC says Emmy was a good servant for Arsenal and still is. Mara says good for them. Now they're trash. C. Walter says, I thought Emmy was going to score at our end from the corner. I'd given up liking football if that happened. Yeah, I hear that. Bro Pro says, I mean, I still like his craziness. I would still like him if he was our asshole. Like, I get that as well. Like, sometimes when they're on your team, you love them. And I'm sure that Argentina absolutely adore him and stuff. And he's a huge deal for them. I just think Arsenal's culture is different than other cultures. And some people call it soft. Some people call it, too nicey nice. But it's just what works for Arsenal. And I don't think that his personality, like Guendouzi, was right for what we were trying to do. Boy says, I think Martinez is given a sour deal by the Arsenal fan base. People forget that Martinez was competing with Bernd Leno, who anyone in the world would look at them and play and tell you which is better. So, I mean, I get that. I don't know if it's a sour deal, though. I mean, we never really disliked Bernd Leno until we saw Martinez play. And Martinez, I think, we don't know whether it is or not, but it felt like a purple patch to me. Especially when you see what he looks like at Aston Villa. He's not one of the best goalkeepers in the Premier League. So could have just been a purple patch, but you don't throw away your number one goalkeeper off of the back of like 8 games. You just don't do it. Especially because Bernd Leno was also a really good servant to Arsenal and was one of our best performers along with Aubameyang for a while. So I think we actually owed Bernd Leno more than Martinez in that situation. And yeah, he may have felt like it's my time to be a number one. I just don't like the way that he did it. And it seemed like he felt like he deserved it off of those like 8 games. And I'm just like, I don't think, that's it. Like, I don't think that's why Arsenal is the club that they are, is because I do think some teams would have switched. But Arsenal are always going to be the team that are going to be loyal to the player that got you there, And I think from our perspective at that point, Leno was the player that was playing for us and doing what we needed him to do and changing his style of play to suit us and things like that, Let's see. Emmanuel says Fulham is outperforming Villa, and a huge part of that is because of Leno. Fulham are something else, aren't they? Fulham are something else. I mean, good team, fun to watch. I mean, good manager, good signings. I'm liking what I'm seeing from Fulham, and I'm happy for Bernd Leno. I'm happy that, he's in a team that's not going to get relegated and he can do his thing and we're doing our thing, and everything works out the way it's supposed to. But that's not to say that I feel like Emi Martinez is like not a good goalkeeper and all that. I just feel like the players that we have are the players that we're supposed to have. It feels right. Feels good, All of our players are kind of like the same. They work hard, they all get along. They're all kind of like the same vibes, But what I also like about our players is that they don't like to get pushed around and stuff. They're nice, but they're not that nice. You know what I mean? Let's see what else you guys are saying. We're just chilling now. We're just having a good time. You guys know these are my favorite types of shows when we're just in here jamming, It's 200 of you guys in here, which is amazing. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel. Like nothing else to do tonight but clean the kitchen, and I hate doing that. So we talk to you guys for as long as possible so I can just avoid doing that because it's horrible. You guys like washing dishes is like my least favorite thing in the world. I'll do anything not to wash a dish or fold a piece of clothing. Anything not to do those things. Let's see. Yo-Yo says that flashpoint in the first half was needed. Wanted to see players back Saka. Hell yeah. Okay. I think, we're seeing Saka grow into a player that people don't like anymore, which I think is a good thing. Overall, I think when your rivals and other teams like you, like your players, like your manager, they don't feel threatened by you. Excuse me. They don't feel threatened by you. Now, people are putting up fail comps of Saka. They're talking about him. They're saying he's not that good. So-and-so's better. He's annoying. He's a whiner. He's this. You're threatened by him. As soon as they stopped liking him, you knew. And when he started pushing back, fighting back, I think he started to grow more. And he probably listened to Tierney. I don't know if you guys saw the quotes from Tierney, but he said Tierney said top players are not nice. And we know Saka is the humble, God-fearing, Bible-reading, lovely kid that we know. But on the pitch, he's a bastard. And that's what you need to be. And Saliba running up to back him and all that kind of stuff. Those things are important. And maybe it did wake them up a little bit. Like, these guys think they're good, and they're going to kick our star boy. Like, absolutely not. We need our players to protect him. You know, let's see. O'Malley says, right, because they can't keep Arteta's name out of their mouth. Glad he mocked Hooper. The thing is that people that are saying, oh my God, it's disgraceful, don't actually don't know why he did it. We had broke through Aston Villa and were on the attack, and he waited until we were fully on the attack and broken through their lines to call it back and say the ball was rolling, which is annoying. And I know people try to make it seem like Arteta, when we lose, Arteta's antics are why we lost, but maybe his energy is the reason why we win. Maybe his energy is the reason why we win. I like the way Arteta is. Sometimes I do think it's over the top, right? Sometimes like I am like, okay, calm down, Arteta. But I'd much rather what I'm seeing from Arteta, kicking every ball, getting stuck in, showing the players that they need to be bastards, than being all timid, So I'll take this over anything else. When other managers do it, it's fine, it's cool, it's whatever. And I liken it to when Arteta first came into Arsenal, and the way that he spoke and the way that he carried himself, people said that he was arrogant. But what it really was is that he needed to emulate or have that energy or vibe of a big club manager. You can't come in timid, because a big club will swallow you up, spit you out, and sometimes he almost got swallowed up, but it wasn't because he didn't have the confidence and, he didn't back himself. And I think that's so important. And so sometimes I just think people have to remember that managers that manage big clubs have big personalities. They do, they really, really do. And Arteta's no different. And just because we had a certain type of manager for 20 years doesn't mean that we're always going to have that same type of manager. I love the way Arteta is. I would take this over anything else every day of the week. Boy said, Saka has simply been raised well. I want him to be a cunning fox on that pitch. Yo-Yo says, we all know Arsenal aren't liked outside of North London, so they must embrace the hate, bask in it. DMC says, quite peculiar. Jess, my daughters hate the same things. They're not fun. It's not fun. Like, I like to clean. Like, I'm weird. Like, I like to clean stuff. Like, I like cleaning, but the only thing I don't like cleaning is dishes. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, it just infuriates me that they're there and they exist as if I didn't use those plates. It's like I am cussing somebody, but I'm like, but you use those plates. So like, why are you upset? It's so weird. I hate dishes and I hate folding clothes. Like, oh, it's annoying. Let's see. Mara says, can't be quiet, gotta express it. I agree. Martin says, Arteta is doing this because it gives the players the feeling that they have one more man on the pitch. Melly says, remember when Van Gaal simulated that dive? Big club managers have huge personalities, Klopp, Pep, Mourinho. These guys have always had personalities. The only difference is they don't feel like Arteta deserves to be acting that way. And he doesn't need, I don't want him acting like Graham Potter. I think it's a little bit harsh, some of the things that people are saying about Graham Potter, but I do think he's going to get swallowed and spit back out because he's not really showing that he has it, and I don't know if it's like it's the shoulders back, it's the way that you carry yourself, call it arrogance, but you have to be arrogant to manage some of the biggest clubs in the world. You expect these guys to be timid? It's weird. Dale says that ball rolling reaction will be on the highlight reel when Arsenal win the league. Yeah, I mean, it's just great. There's so many things. Arteta keeping the ball from Kevin De Bruyne. I love that. Like, that was that. I loved it. I'm not gonna lie. It's great. Amir says, I've seen some use Arteta as an example of why it's hard to recruit, encourage people to become refs. Maybe if refs were competent, we wouldn't be pointing them out. Like, come on. Arteta's not stopping anybody from doing their job. He didn't stop Lee, whatever his name is, from drawing them lines. Like, that's just the name of the game. Arteta just happens to be a very hyper, passionate, in your face type of guy on the sideline. And if you can't handle it, then go do something else. Like, he's not the first manager that you've seen to do this. He's not. I prefer not to speak. Arteta does have a lot of Mourinho in him. He really, really does. I think sometimes it's like, okay, well, is he more Arsene? Is he more this and that? I think as a manager and the way that he carries himself, like sometimes on like the sideline and what he says in the press, it's giving Mourinho. But at the same time, I hated Mourinho at Chelsea, but a lot of it was because he was getting them to be the best team in the world. And a lot of times it's just hate and it's jealousy. I've never liked a manager that was coaching a team that I felt that was competing with Arsenal or better than Arsenal. Always hated them, always cursed their bald heads, always, always, always. I like that Arteta has a little bit of that in him. I like it. DMC says, Jess, don't you think William Saliba needs to be a little bit more aggressive if he wants to properly succeed in the EPL? I do, but what I do think is that he is somebody that this is an example of Arteta getting something spot on, because for a long time, people were saying that Arteta was wrong for not having Saliba in this team. He stayed out in France, built up his confidence, became, the young player of that league, was exceptional there. Now he's getting a little bit of, I wouldn't say a humbling, but a little bit of a reality check in the Premier League. And there's nothing wrong with it. Saliba is having his first year in Premier League ups and downs. Gabriel had the same. It happens, and he has to learn how to use his body. He has to learn how to, he's just dropped off a step a little bit after the World Cup. Some games he's really good, some games he's off, but that's normal for a young player. And this is what happens when you really hype somebody up as well. We forget that this is still a player that needs to develop. And as much as we think that he's a world-class player, going to be world-class, he's not that yet. And so there's nothing wrong with him, having these games or having these moments. Gabriel had them as well when he came from France. That's how it is, and neither of them have had the benefit, I think, of, well, Gabriel a little bit because he played with David Luiz, but I think in general, if you had plopped Thiago Silva next to one of them, or you had plopped, Virgil van Dijk next to one of them, or, whatever, they would benefit from that. But they're, Saliba is learning next to Gabriel, who is still also trying to develop too. So, and they have a goalkeeper behind them that's also trying to develop as well. So, there's a lot going on back there, but Saliba is doing exactly what I anticipated him doing, which is actually didn't know he was going to be this good. I thought he would struggle a little bit more, but he started off like a house on fire, went to the World Cup, is having a little bit of a up and down right now, and I'm sure it'll smooth out. Especially because it feels like Saliba loses fitness quite quickly when he's not playing. And I think he lost a little bit of that fitness at the World Cup as well. Yo-Yo says, White and Gabriel have gotten very little credit for how they've bailed Saliba. White and Gabriel have gotten very little credit for how they bailed Saliba out throughout the season. Well, yeah, I think Saliba is a player that headed the ball back into his own net and was applauded by the Emirates. I've never seen that before. He is a player that the fan base has a real love for that we don't have for anybody else beyond Saka. I've never seen that, and he didn't even come from our academy. So I do think that there's just an element of I'm forcing it, and so I don't really want to see that he's still developing kind of thing. But football is a team game, and there's times where Saliba is better than Gabriel. There's times where Gabriel is better than Saliba. That's why it's a partnership. And so always pointing out who's better than who is kind of counterproductive when we all know that, it's all of them together. And so, yeah, but White has been very, very good this season. He had a little bit of a down period when everybody was pretty much down, right? But second half of the Aston Villa game, he looked right back up to his old self, which is perfect because perfect timing. What Boy says Saliba bailed them boys out earlier in the season. It's fair. In our back line, yeah, it's all the same. Everybody is, that's what it is. We bail each other out. Let's see. Boy says, also Ben White has been the most important player of our season if we don't count Saka. Has he been? You guys, has he been? Has Ben White been the most important player beyond Saka? I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like, I don't know who I feel like has been our most important player, but I'm not convinced that it's Ben White. I think he's been our most improved. I think he's been our most improved. That's what I'll say. O'Malley says, thoughts on Trossard? Really good against Manchester United. Really good off the bench against Brentford. Wish he would have got some more minutes in those games. Really good against Manchester City in the FA Cup. Wasn't that great against Aston Villa, but he needs to learn how to play with us. Our left-hand side is suffering right now, so I'm not quite sure it's just him or it's just Martinelli. I think the left-hand side is what it is, but I'd still like to see him get more minutes because even though Martinelli scored that goal, I still kind of feel like I saw Martinelli really struggling to beat his man and to keep the ball and things like that. So I'd like Trossard to continue to play so he can learn how to play with us and stuff like that. But overall, I just think he was okay against Aston Villa, but he also played the majority of his minutes when the team was not playing well. Diallo says, I'm here for the Fabio Vieira prop. The kid is coming fast in the rear view quicker than I thought. He's going to be good, you guys. He just needs to like acclimatize to the league. And I really think people forget that Fabio Vieira, like, he was only got into the Porto team after Luis Diaz left to go to Liverpool. So that was only about a 6 month, not even from January to May, let's say, where he was consistently playing for Porto. And this is somebody that was more of like an academy kid than anything else. So, and then he got the injury and then he didn't have the preseason. And now he's expected to, all of that, despite all of that, be amazing at Arsenal his first year in the Premier League. And I think that was kind of unrealistic, but I also feel like there was a lot of Vieira because, we were linked to Paquetá, we were linked to Tielemans, we were linked to other midfielders, and we ended up with him. And so because he wasn't as close maybe to the first team or as close to being that big of a game changer for us, people had almost like an agenda against him in a way. But if you just take that aside and you just look at kind of how he's come into the team, he's going to take a little bit of time, I do love Vieira, but I also just think when I saw him play against Brentford and Wolves and stuff like that, I thought a final third player is so important. A player that has, end product over anything is so important. And I want him in this team, so I'm going to back it. I am going to back it. Bro says, I think Vieira is being protected by Arteta, but his skill sets are high. Yeah. Yo-Yo says Vieira was a project at Porto and is a project at Arsenal. That's why I don't want him to be relied upon as a difference maker this season, at least. I hear that. Ivy says Fabio is developing his game. He will be immense in the second season. Dale says, face it, Jess, you love Vieira. Replay your initial response to his signing from the summer. I do love him. And that's the thing though. It's like, I do think that people have been harsh on him. I do, I think he's a nothing player and we should have never bought him and all that was premature and based on maybe being disappointed that we haven't addressed midfield. I think a lot of the Sambi Vieira stuff is because people feel disappointed that we haven't addressed midfield properly. And it is something that has not been addressed yet. We still have Shaka in the team, somebody that people have come around a little bit, but we still know that there's probably an upgrade there. Thomas Partey and his injury issues, so and El Neni was not good enough. So I think a lot of the Sambi and Vieira hate comes from feeling disappointed that we haven't upgraded midfield properly. A lot of Arsenal fans felt like we would get a Paquetá or a Tielemans or somebody to really underpin the group that we have now, but we brought in another young player. And so, yeah, but also because some people just looked at his size and said, nah, he's never going to make it. I looked at him too and I was like, wow, like he's very skinny, but he'll be fine. Hugo Garcia says next year Fabio will be ready. I agree. Bro Pro says Vieira, Nelly left half space. It's in the works. I mean, it doesn't hurt that they like love each other as well, like, and they're like besties. I mean, their bromance is so cute. Like it just really is. Yo-Yo asked, do you start the same 11 who started or finished versus Villa against Leicester? I would probably start the same team that started against Villa, unless Thomas Partey is fit. If Thomas Partey is fit, then it's unfortunate, but it would be harsh on Jorginho, but I would start him if he's ready to go. But yeah, I would pretty much start the exact same team. Like I said, with what I'm looking at is we're going to play some home games coming up soon against teams that we should be beating, and like Everton and Bournemouth. I think that's maybe an opportunity to do more rotation, but I would start the exact same team, and I wouldn't start Martinelli just because I do feel like in normal gameplay against Aston Villa, I still felt like he was struggling, and I think Trossard still deserves more time. That's what I would do. Zich says thoughts on Sambi's performances for Crystal Palace so far. I don't have very much thoughts on it, to be honest. I think he's just been okay. And I didn't really watch him against Brentford. By the time I started watching that, he was off the pitch already. So you guys will have to tell me how Sambi's doing. Boy asks, let's say we win the league and Shaka scores 4 to 6 goals from now to the end of the season. Do we upgrade on him or we stick with him? We upgrade. We upgrade, period. I think it's time. Even if he does score the 4 to 6 goals, I just feel we can do so much more in that position. We just, like Xhaka's skill set, like he's trying really hard to be that left 8, but he's just not it. I feel like there's a more naturally suited player out there in the world that can play that position. And what you just see, like when the spaces are smaller and the pictures are not quite the same, he kind of struggles to be creative beyond the patterns of play. And I think we could just do a little bit more there. I feel like it's just time to upgrade that position for me. But I like Shaka and I'd like to keep him in the team. I don't want to get rid of him. I just feel like we just could bring in somebody else or use something different there. Or maybe Fabio Vieira. Here's the other part of what I'm thinking is when I think about I still don't know why we're bringing in Declan Rice. And the reason why I say that is because every time I watch him play, I flip-flop between do I think he's a 6 or do I think he's an 8? And I think maybe in the short term he can play 8 for us. But in the long term, he might be the type of player that is the right type of foundation for more lightweight 8s to play in our team. Right now, we kind of still need Shaka because we haven't really gotten to the point where we can have 2 8s that don't really do as much defensive work. Of course, our 8s always do the pressing and they sit in the shape, but we still kind of need Xhaka to do some of the ball winning and all that kind of stuff, especially in the box. But I think the future of this team is lighter weight 8s. And what I mean by that is like ESR plus Odegaard plus Vieira, like more of that. And maybe that's why you would bring in Declan Rice, because I think that although Thomas Partey is great, Declan Rice has a little bit more robustness about him, and he's more of like he can win the ball, but he also has good passes on him and stuff. Maybe that's why we're trying to bring him in. I don't know, but that's where I think we're going, because ESR has to become an interior at some point, right? Vieira is an interior. Odegaard is also an 8. They're all kind of lightweight. And if you're going to play with that inverted left back, I think you need to be able to have a left-sided midfielder that is almost all about creativity and getting into the final third. But, you know, that means that the CDM has to be able to pretty much operate in midfield by themselves. You know, they have to be able to be kind of like a commander in there. So that's all I'm really thinking about, you know, but that's a ways away from now. And, you know, we'll see what happens next season. But our signings are going to be so interesting because we will have Champions League, and I expect us to be able to attract a certain type of player. And so we'll see what we can do with that. Diallo says, did you speak on KT yet? Yes, we did. You said he looks like latter years Pepe, totally disconnected from the group. I did see the video that people were putting out there about him not celebrating with the team and all that kind of stuff. We spoke about it, but I do feel like he'll leave, not necessarily because of the disconnection from the group, but because he's just too good to be sitting on our bench. You know, also, there was a quote from Arteta about Balogun too, and I found it interesting. I don't know if it's too informative, but I did find it interesting. You can always just kind of read between the lines on things like this, but let me see if I can find it now. Let me see if I can find it. You know, when you just forget what you're doing. Here, he says, Arteta on Balogun, he said, he can come back to Arsenal and shine. I've seen enough this year in league. I know the Premier League is one step higher, but he's one of the leading goal scorers in league, and it's not an accident. So from Arteta to say that he can do it, and he's basically saying a fluke and he can come back. So maybe, you know, Balogun comes back in as well. But yeah. All right, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel. I really enjoyed the stream. We went for almost 2 hours. It was amazing. But if you're just joining, just, you know, rewind to the beginning. We talked about the entire game. We talked about the performances, how it made us feel, all those kind of things. The next match, Fabio Vieira and how great he is, Jorginho and Tierney. All right. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye, y'all.